So, for the people who are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit about Pastor Dwight Buckner Jr.
All right. Pastor Dwight Buckner Jr. is a seventh generation pastor. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have been living in Atlanta, Georgia for the last almost 20 years.
Okay.
I came here for college. Morris Brown College is how I got to Atlanta. And then I actually, when the school shut down years ago, I then transferred to Bible college and then into seminary. But I have a long lineage of ministers in my family, and so I ran from the call for years, but submitted when I got about say probably about 24. I started taking it a lot more serious then.
So,
Yeah.
what?
Husband to
Sorry.
okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna ask you a question about that, but I'll let you finish. My apologies.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Husband to Elisa Bennett Buckner, and father to Malachi and Elias Buckner, my two sons, 7 and 8. And I'm a pastor here in Georgia. Church is 8 years old, and I'm also entrepreneur, author, host of other things God has blessed me with. Go ahead now. I'm ready for your question.
Okay, so you said you are seventh generation pastor, so that's a long line of
Yeah,
Jesus in the house with the family.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
said you ran from the calling for a long time, but what finally stopped you in your tracks and said, "This is in me. Let me go ahead and follow this calling"?
Well, when I moved to Georgia and Morris Brown shut down, I had plans to transfer to Clark Atlanta University, and I was going to transfer to the school. And 2 weeks before school started, they revoked my admittance, leaving me with no school to go to in Georgia. And I said to God, I didn't come all the way down here just to go to work. I came to go to school. Started crying and tearfully. And so after I began crying, he spoke to my spirit and says, now I want you to go to Bible college. That was a hallmark moment for me to move into ministry. I was running then, but I knew God was tugging on me. But finally, unforeseen circumstances came by where I had to eventually submit. So um, if that wouldn't have happened, I probably would have been out there, God knows what. But because that institution at that time closed, which is now reopened, it played a very, very vital part in the transition for me into Bible college. Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I want to get into the author side of you. We
Okay.
there's a book that is prepping to be a bestseller just from the title.
Come
There
on,
was
man.
a
Come on, man.
prior to that. So let's get into your journey as an author, and let's talk about your books.
Okay. All right. So the first book I wrote was called Breaking the Cycle of Lust. And I'm extremely familiar with that spirit. That's something I dealt with for years in my younger ages. And I began to realize something, and that was that lust does not start with us. If we go back through our genealogy or our pedigree, we find out that maybe there was somebody in the family that struggled with the same spirit. There are families who deal with alcoholism and drugs, families that deal with prostitution, families that deal with gangs, families that deal with lust, depression. That's a spirit, but it doesn't start with you. It normally starts with somebody that was before you, and if that spirit's not dealt with, then it transfers now to different family members, to your kids, if you don't have it under control. And that was a spirit that I was dealing with, and I said, Lord, I can write a book about this. And I chronicled and followed the life of David, who was king, but yet had a great struggle with lust. And I began to talk about the ups and downs of his battles with lust, and also how it transferred down to his kids. And his son Absalom did crazy things, and it began to run in the family and break apart. And so it's a cycle. It runs in a cycle, and it's imperative that I gave keys in that book to try to break it.
So, out of all the tips that you've given to break the cycles of lust, what do you find is the one that people kind of connect with the most?
Um, Really fasting. because scripture says that these kind only come out by fasting and praying. That he's Jesus there is mentioning spirits. There are certain things that only come out by through fasting and prayer, through denying your flesh. And so fasting is a way by where people are able to connect and say, you know what, maybe I need to turn down my plate, and bring my body under subjection. Now, fasting is not turning off your TV, turning off your phone. That's not fasting. That's turning off your phone. But fasting is turning down your plate, making a decision to say, Lord, I'm literally going to abstain from a few meals simply because I want to hear from you, or I want to try to control my flesh a little bit. So, fasting is a big one.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, book number one. Then,
Yeah.
as we transition out of book number one, you get the
Yes.
opportunity to be on marriage boot camp. I'm not sorry. I'm married at first sight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. Uh huh. Uh huh.
So,
Right.
how did that opportunity come about? And from that opportunity, what have you learned about your?
Well, great question. The individual that asked me to come on, at that point, I was serving in the capacity of a mentor, spiritual advisor already, and I reluctantly accepted and went on. And I thought it was just going to be some, a family and friends, and that was it. But interestingly enough, I was able to get callbacks to be in different scenes and then express how I felt on certain situations and actually talk. They did a scene in my church and did other scenes, and so that began to grow on me. And as I walked into that, God literally used that opportunity and continued to open up doors through it. You couldn't have told me in a million years that I would have been on a reality show counseling.
Mm,
You couldn't have told me that. I didn't see that one coming.
mm,
But after I was in it, I said, you know what, Lord, this is a very unusual vehicle you use for me to help get the gospel out there by the way of counseling, and I just accepted it, and I look forward to more doors that way. But that's how that happened. Yeah, the
okay.
experience has been phenomenal. It's something I can really get used to. I love it, and I think as long as I'm on that type of platform, my job is to lead people to Christ. And I told God, if I'm ever there again, or you continue to open up those doors, all I'm going to do is try to bring glory to you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, five things men need.
Come on here.
Tell us about that.
All right. So about back in January, I started writing a book called Five Things Every Man Need. The title just dropped into me, and out of nowhere, I was literally in my car, and Five Things Every Man Need dropped on me, and I began to think about some of the very important things, stuff that's imperative that men need to thrive. If you look at society, there's a lot of help books, self-help books for women in business, women in ministry. We love our women. We thank God for our women. But when I begin to look at men, there's not a lot out there for men. There are things out there. There are groups and ministries, but there's really not a whole lot out there that men can run to. And so I begin to write this book, and I begin to think about five things that men need. And one of the things that I'll mention tonight. There are five things. I can mention all five, but I'll mention just a few tonight. One of the things that I mentioned in my book is that all men need support. Um, if you give a man support, he'll build you a house. And I'm not even talking about so much financially. If you tell a man, um, you did a great job cutting the grass, thank you for taking out the trash, thank you for showing up on time to pick up the kids, that will make a man go to the limit, because if he feels empowered and encouraged and supported, he'll continue to thrive in that area. Most men fail in areas by where they have no support. If the father wasn't there, the mother didn't support them, or the community wasn't behind them, or whatever this was. Most men fail when they don't get adequate support system. Thus, this is why we even now deal with a generation of young people some young people, not all people, but some young men that have given away to gangs and drugs. And this is simply because of the lack of support. If they had male figures in their life to encourage them, to motivate them, to push them, that would change the entire dynamic of their life. They had somebody that was just strong in their life saying, hey, you know what? You can do it. You're not just like your father. You're not just, you can do your own thing. You have purpose. You got vision. Men will go far. So men need support. Men need support. I can stop right there and do some more if you want.
Oh no,
Um,
absolutely. Feel free to
okay.
go ahead.
Okay. So another thing I mentioned in my book about 5 things all men need is men need a safe place. If a man is in a house that's hostile, that's chaotic, he won't return home. He'll literally get off work, drive past the house, and go to the movie theater until he can come back to the house and feel like he's at peace.
Mhm.
Because men don't like to be in chaotic environments. As tough and as bold as we act, we don't like to be around chaotic stuff. We like to be in places of peace by where we can rest our head. One thing in the Bible that Samson was looking for was a safe place. Now, he laid his head on Delilah's lap, which was the wrong place, but he was looking for a place to rest. And I
Mhm.
think it's imperative that we create spaces by where men can talk and be open without being judged for their past or what they did or their mistakes, and literally just create a space where men can be free to be themselves and open up and talk with other men. The iron sharpens iron, and men really can sharpen men. When we get into a place where we encourage each other, we thrive. So men need a safe place. And so if the woman says, well, my husband won't open up to me, he won't talk to me, you have to ask him how to create that environment by where he can open up and talk. The birth of man caves came about because men look for a safe place. Hey, I'm
Mhm.
gonna go down in the basement and watch TV, play pool, be by myself because I'm creating a safe atmosphere. So men need a safe place.
So, in reading this book, hopefully, a lot of men will read it and they'll apply the lessons that are in the book. But
Hmm.
how do you get men to a place where they're willing to open up and accept the things that are, not wrong? I mean, the things that are wrong with them. Because as we know, men want to be strong. Um, you can never show emotion. These are things
Yeah.
that like passed down from generation to generation. Like, how do we get
Yes.
to a place where we let these things in so that we can be better men for ourselves, for our families, and for future generations?
Well, I think that men have to do a better job at letting go of the ego because oftentimes a man's ego will get him in trouble. Um, it's okay to have confidence, but when you are ego driven, then that means you're not open to receive correction. You're not open to receive advice. You're not open to receive what somebody else can offer you. So I think that the first thing is if a man were to purchase my book, is to not judge the cover, to not think that, hey, this man doesn't know what he's talking about, or they're just trying to down me. You can't judge it like that. You have to let go of the ego and says, you know what, let me go into it and see if there's something I can receive. That's the first step in a man being able to open up the book is you got to think, you got to get to the place where you realize maybe there's something that I need to know. Because as a man, we have tendencies to think we know everything. I know how to change a tire. I know how to change the oil. I know how to do maintenance on a car. I know how to start a business. Some man who's in the street says, well, I know how to make money. I know how to chase. I know how to get women. That's all. That's okay. But do you know how to listen? Do you know? Are you teachable? And so men have to get to the place where they say, you know what? Let me lay aside everything I know for a second, just see if I can get something from this book.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Now you
Okay.
have two sons or daughter and a son.
Yeah, two sons.
Okay.
Two sons, 7 and 8.
Now your sons are boys who are going to be young men, who are going to be men, we're going to be fathers, productive citizens, and things like that. So from this book, are there any things that you're instilling in them that you feel that we as a community can instill in our young men at a young age?
Absolutely. Another chapter in the book is Every Man Needs Affirmation. And I open up the chapter with a story about my two boys. One of the things I do with my sons is I always make sure that I go out of my way to hug and to kiss them, to hug
Mhm.
and to kiss them. And it's something that I've been doing since, of course, they were babies, but I'm going to always do it because a hug and a kiss from the dad is affirmation. And I believe that all men need affirmation. A story that I use in the Bible was David when he connected with Jonathan. There are some that have polluted that particular scripture to make it somewhat sinful, but it's not sinful at all. It's scripture can't be sinful, but they polluted it and looked at it from a lustful lens. But they tried to say David and Jonathan, it was something crazy going on with them, but they were really close friends, best friends. And what happens is that Saul, who had rejected David, put David on the run. He was trying to kill him, of course. And then Jonathan, Saul's son, found him and put his robe on David as a young man and says, David, listen, I know my dad's trying to hurt you, but let me affirm you with my robe to let you know that I'm here for you, that I love you. Then they make an exchange. They say, listen, if anything happens to my kids, anything happens to me, take care of my kids. Anything happens to me, take care of my kids. And Jonathan then affirms David that despite you running from my father, you're still a king. And the robe that you can't fit now will be the robe you'll fit when you become a dog, because there's kingly in you. And you have got to understand, David, that though your biological father Jesse didn't affirm you, Saul did not affirm you, but let me affirm you as the king's son, that you're next. And so affirmations are critical. My affirmation every time I hug my sons, you're next. Every time I hug them, you're next. Be prepared. It's coming. God's going to use you. God. And so affirmation is imperative. Yeah.
So do you feel that the journey is going to continue with your sons? Do you think there's going to be an eighth generation?
Woo! Yes, I already know it is. They already acting like they're preachers, so they be in there hollering, going to town. So it's going to continue for sure. I already see it in both of them, but I don't force it on them. I never say to them, "Hey, man, you're gonna be a pet." I don't do that. I just see them growing into it, and but I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, our genealogy, our family lineage is so strong. It's so strong in ministry. It's almost hard to run. It's
Mm.
not forced on you, but it's almost like God, the seed of Abraham. He just put it in everybody. But yeah, it's going to continue with them. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So throughout the process of this book, throughout the process of the last book, and the next book, I'm sure is going to come. What
yeah. I'm
is
already
the
getting on
one
it. Mhm.
thing that, and
Say that one more
we'll
time.
have to have you back for the next one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what is the one main thing that you feel like you've learned about yourself throughout the process of writing?
Well, I learned that I have penmanship. I learned um, that writing is a ministry, and it can reach a whole different audience. I think so many times preachers focus on preaching. I mean, I think that God gifted me with a gift to preach and to teach and to encourage, but I paid little attention to my gift to write. And growing up, I was an extremely horrible writer. I still am a bad writer, but that ain't gonna stop me from writing. So the thoughts and stuff that I have in my head, I put it on paper. I type it, I put notes, I get it together, because somebody who may not listen to preaching may listen to a story that you put in the book with godly principles. And so I want to be effective in every area. I want to be effective in uh, the church and ministry. I want to be effective in writing. I want to be effective in television. I want to be effective in my business. Every area I want to be effective. I don't want to be one dimensional. If God gave me a plethora of gifts, I want to use every gift, and writing is a gift that I'm going to really tap into. My goal is to from this day forward is to release at least 1 or 2 books for the rest of my life, every year, for the rest of my life, every year. I'm already working on getting some ideas around my 3rd book. So every year I'm going to release a book for the rest of my life, every single year.
And you're looking pretty young, so God willing, that's gonna be a whole lot of books.
Oh man, come on now. No, no. No, I'm not as young as I look, but I thank you for that encouragement though.
Absolutely. So look, tell the people, the readers, the fans, the people who are going to purchase the book, the people here in Atlanta like myself who definitely want to visit the church and hear
Yeah.
what you have to say. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, where the church is, and where they can purchase both books.
Sure. Well, you can. Our church is Generation of Hope Church, and we're located in Decatur, Georgia, 4717 Covington Highway, Suite 105. We're on Facebook, Twitter, all of those social media platforms. The church is. You can get a hold of me. I'm on all your social media platforms at Pastor Dwight Buckner on Instagram, Dwight Buckner on Facebook, Pastor Dwight Buckner on TikTok, Pastor Dwight Buckner on Twitter, all your social media outlets, Clubhouse. I don't really get on there too much, but I'm on there. Uh, um, Let me see here. And then they can also go to PastorDwightBucknerJr.com to get a little bit more info about me or to order a copy of my book that's coming in June.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to that book.
Thank
Um,
you, sir.
and I actually need to go back and get the last one so I can learn a little
Okay.
bit about
Okay.
how to handle,
Yeah,
certain.
yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. I wish you
Thank you,
much
man.
success.
Thank you.
I'm gonna grab one of these Sundays, grab some
Yeah.
friends, and gonna
Yeah.
come out to the church and hear what you have to
Yeah.
say. We
Yeah.
appreciate.
Thank you for having me. It's Q, right? Thank you
Yes,
so much for having me. What an honor, man. Blessings on your magazine, your business, everything, man. Bless you, man.
thank you. Same
All
to
right.
you, and I
All
appreciate
right.
you so very much.
Thank you, man. Bless you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. All right.